What you feel is suffering isn't. What you know of your suffering, you don't. This doesn't mean, however, that nothing is happening. This doesn't mean that where you are right now isn't painful. It is that you are not fully aware of what is actually happening, and thus your experience is an illusion. Take the story of the man and the snake. A man in a small village is walking home one evening. It's dark and hard to see as there are no lights on anywhere. Suddenly, his heart drops to his stomach as he sees what he thinks is a very large snake on the sidewalk. He calls to alert people in the village of the threat. Men come with torches to see it, only for it to be revealed to be a long rope that had been left outside. What he thought he saw and what was really happening were very different things. And yet, the fear was real. The worry and the panic that went through his entire body was real to him. And thus, for the moment that he believed there was a snake, the snake was real to him. And we've all been there. When I speak of an illusion, I'm not speaking of a delusion. It's not that there is nothing happening at all. It's that what you think is happening isn't what is happening. Like a magician that makes something disappear, the item hasn't actually vanished, but it's just been moved about and kept from our view. That thing is actually gone. The illusion of its disappearance is real, but what we see and what is actually happening are two different things entirely. So too is suffering. That can be hard to hear. Many people who are suffering from ailments, or have lost someone they care for and are experiencing grief, or have had some horrible thing happen to them, may blanch at the idea that they don't know what is truly causing their suffering. But that's why suffering is so tricky and so prevalent for people. For even the Buddha acknowledged that life is suffering, but also that suffering has a cause and suffering can come to an end. And anything that ends is an illusion. Only the eternal is real. The very transient nature of suffering shows its illusory nature. But none of that means anything to the person in the throes of suffering. All good tidings and well wishes, all statements that what is happening isn't happening, will mean nothing to the person when they are actually suffering. And thus we must begin with understanding suffering, so that anyone who wishes to or needs to can see it clearly and escape the illusion. That comes with first defining suffering correctly, because our minds use definitions to express reality to us, and how we define things is how we then will interpret them. And nothing more greatly shows that than the idea of suffering. First, though, we must understand words in general, because what is a word? Nothing more than a bark or a growl, sound moving through chords, given meaning only by our mind's understanding of the language it's being spoken in, and thus suffering is only a word we use to describe a state that we're in, either physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually. But in the end, it is just a word, a powerful word, but just a word, and one that we don't understand fully. For is suffering something that happens when we are in physical pain? Or is it something that happens when we are in emotional pain? Or is it our emotions over our physical discomfort? Or is it our physical discomfort over our emotional pain? And what are these emotions? Yes, we have words for these sensations that arise in us, like happiness, sadness, disgust, love, and fear. We give words to physical sensations like pleasure and pain. Each word used to delineate our experience and to try to explain the varying sensations that arise. Sometimes, the only difference between the two is how we feel about them. We can call intense physical sensations pain unless we like it. Then we call it pleasure. Everything given a word, and every word given meaning and its own understanding in our mind to explain this experience to ourselves. But suffering is kind of elusive. It's an all-encompassing term that doesn't mean one thing to one person. The dictionary defines it as the state of undergoing pain, distress, or hardship, which then leads us right back to the Buddha that life is suffering. But I would like to offer a different definition. Suffering is not the physical discomfort, nor even the emotional discomfort, or the worldly hardship that you experience, but exists as the distress over the pain and hardship being experienced, which is to say that it is only in how we interpret the experience happening to us that we are suffering at all. If you make this one change of the definition, you can begin to see your suffering clearer, separating it from extreme and possibly even crippling sensations that move through your body, separating it from the emotional upheavals that occur with loss of any kind, separating it from any challenge or problem that arises in your life, realizing then the truth of your suffering is when your desires do not match your external world, because that is when distress arises. Only when things are not happening as you want them to happen, as you think they should happen, Thus you suffer when you do not want to or cannot accept the world as it is. Instead of allowing yourself to be wrapped up in the narrative in your mind that things should not be as they are, that life could have been or should have been different from what is happening right now, you do not have to suffer what is happening to you. You can accept the world for what it is, understanding that you do not suffer what is happening to you. You suffer your thoughts about what is happening. When you realize this, problems are no longer problems. Pain is no longer pain. Depression, loss, and hardship are no longer any of these things either. All of this is to say that anyone who can accept life as it is will not suffer life as it appears to happen. For when you don't define the events, bringing your stories and narratives to them, but rather meet them fully and completely, embracing and experience the emotions of what is happening or what has happened, and then letting them go and accepting them for what they are, you will find peace, whether you're in heaven or hell. Called right view in Buddhism. It is in seeing things for what they truly are that you then can find peace. That a magician didn't make a woman disappear. That a rope is not a snake. That what you think is suffering is many things that are not suffering. It is in looking at the world without judgment. And when you start seeing things clearly for what they are, you can take the second step to liberation from suffering and realizing that you are not you. That there is no John or Jane Q to actually suffer. That the identity that you hold on to, that the body that you think is causing you so much pain, that the life you feel so attached as your life is not what is actually yours or actually real. They are an illusion of your mind. They are all transient and will pass. But all of this, all that you experience, is experienced in the mind. The world is not the world as it is, but rather your mind's interpretation of the world. Damage the brain, and you can alter the perception of the world. Damage the brain, and you can alter the entirety of the person. Thus, who you are and what you perceive are only and ever the product of the mind. And when you can take that step to understand that you don't see things as they are, but rather as you understand them to be, then you can take the steps of understanding that your suffering is an illusion. Because there is no one to suffer. You are not the body. So the pain the body experiences, though it can be experienced very real and very challenging, is not who you are, and thus is not something happening to you, but just something happening. All emotions and all feelings are transient experiences created by how the brain understands the world around it. They are not you either. It is in realizing fully that you are not these things that suffer, that experience pain, that experience loss, that want the world to be different, that you can then experience life for all its glory. Meeting the pain and the loss and moving beyond it. Finding then your true self, the infinite and singular oneness that is everything. Letting go of the illusion of separation, and finding the absolute peace and joy that is your birthright, that is the eternal now. Hey, wait 1 second. I've got something big to share with you. Thanks for watching that video. If you made it this far, you hopefully enjoyed it. And if you enjoyed it, we put out one at least every other day. Hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the notifications at the bottom of the video. And keep an eye out for the next video. Also, I'm building a community of people who want to transform their lives over a year. It's called the Cosmic Joke Challenge. If you want to find out what the Cosmic Joke Challenge is, you'll learn that and more in our 100% free Facebook group, which will be growing a library of content not available on YouTube. The link will be available in the description box below. Click it, join, and start transforming your life today.